Chinese buyers are fleeing Australia. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee. Let's have a look at this article from news.com.au, which is discussing, well, new overseas buyers from the UK, US, Singapore, and Hong Kong could impact housing prices because, well, the Chinese buyers are fleeing Australia. Now, I have shown this one little chart, which was sent to me by a viewer in 2019. This was from the Foreign Investment Review Board. The approved investment in housing has collapsed, 58% year on year from 18 to $13 billion. You see that black line on this chart, everyone? That is the approved investment in new housing as a share of the Australian Bureau of Statistics residential building approvals. Now, yesterday we looked at just the crash in building approvals that has occurred because the home builder effect stopped influencing the market, or it's cooled off. It's cooled off, and we had over a 19% slice in building approvals. Now, I'm not surprised, because of course, if you've got a hard deadline, everyone's going to rush to it. Everyone's going to rush to get their building approval done. For my work on my house, I've just received my structural engineer's drawings. I got the town planning stuff in, so I'm probably going to submit that for the certifier today to sign off on the building approval. And then, as owner builders, we'll be building over some time. Now, a fall in building approvals will take some time before it starts materializing in the trades or in just the demand for work. Architects and designers like myself, we're usually the first to notice it. Some of you in the comments mentioned you're flat out, but it depends where you are in the chain. If you're in construction or trades, you probably could be flat out. Another person said, we're busy, but the pipeline's getting quiet, and that's what you have to watch. Now, the issue with this is that you've got a lot of foreign investment coming into the country in the housing sector. Now, you've got to understand that has the potential to overheat the sector. Have a look at that growth there. Look at how high that was as a proportion of building approvals. It was nearly 100%, everyone, for new builds. Nearly 100%. That is not normal. It shouldn't be normal. Now, I want to bring up this quote, and this is from the House of Cards essay that Matt Berry wrote years ago, shared it on Medium and LinkedIn. In 2016, 67% of Australia's GDP growth came from the cities of Sydney and Melbourne, where both state and federal governments have done everything they could to fuel a runaway housing market. Okay, so 67% of all of the growth in the country. The small area from Sydney CBD to Macquarie Park is in the middle of apartment building frenzy, and alone contributed 24% of the country's entire GDP growth for 2016, according to SGS Economics and Planning. So we had nearly a quarter of all of the growth in the country occur in this area in Sydney, in apartments. Do you think that may be overheating that sector? Do you think that could be why now we're having all of these construction issues manifest around the country? Because it's overheating. Now, this article will talk about how new overseas buyers could impact could impact Australia, coming from Hong Kong, UK, US, and Singapore. And you'll have a lot of people who are saying, China's not the biggest foreign investor in Australia. They're not the biggest foreign investor, and they're right. They're not. But there's one thing. I went through the Foreign Investment Review Board stats some time ago. Because, well, what do you think? What do you think is going to have a bigger impact on housing prices? Do you think a Bechtel mine? Sure, it helped me buy my house. Dornier and Caval Ridge and a few others we worked on. It helped me start my practice. It gave us exposure to volumetric modular architecture, so now we have a bit of a unique skill set there. But it's in demand. Do you think that's going to have more of an impact on the prices of houses? Or thousands of people coming and making apartment or house purchases? What do you think? Now, I've done this chart here. This is showing the number of approvals by the country of investor. Okay, this isn't the dollar amount. I've taken the number of different investors, the number of times. So China The money coming from there in Greater China is not as much as other countries, not as much as the US, but there's many more people doing it. What do you think they're buying, everyone? What do you think they're buying? They're flooding into this. And you can't blame them. Housing always goes up in Australia. The climate's great. The political climate is pretty, apathetic. Sure, we're starting to lose our freedoms here bit by bit, but it'll, compared to other parts of the world, well, in some regards, we actually have less freedoms already. But, that's for another video. So I can't blame people wanting to get money out of China and into Australia. But that's going to have an impact on the market, everyone. You've got to understand that. 51% of all of the approved investors. That's going to have an impact. Don't kid yourself when you're thinking it doesn't. And the people that say, the US has more, yes, but the number of investors are less. What do you think will have a bigger impact on the average person? At least on trying to get into a home. So let's look at this article. Because I wonder if the UK, US, Singapore, and Hong Kong, where is it? Where's the UK? Are they even on here? Hong Kong? I can't find them. There's somewhere here. They'd be tiny. Is that them there? Yeah, there we go. There. You have to forgive me for my... This is just I can't find the Excel file I did this. I've got to find it. So there's the UK. What is it? 6%? Hong Kong and Singapore. Okay. So you're talking 12, 17% compared to 51%. So is this... We'll see what Sarah talks about in here. If it's going to juice up the market. If it's more FOMO to influence it. Everyone. My biggest concern is what unnatural things will the government do to keep property inflated when this source of fuel for the property bonfire is starting to dissipate. That's the concern with this. Because we all know now our governments on either side of the political spectrum, be it, far left or slightly left, the two political spectrums we have here in Australia, they will intervene in the market. They both will intervene in the market. I would hope we should start to change the culture here in Australia where we're realizing the I mean, look at these bloody things. Look how close together they are. You can't even swing a cat. But back to this. I would hope we need to try and shift the culture so people here start to feel, realize that the interventions by the government in the market always result in a worse off condition for all of us. This is the problem. Most people only think to the short term. That home buyer grant, that'll get me in here, I'll get that house. The housing, it always goes up, invest, government will bail you out. But the problem is 10, 20 years' time, look, there's no manufacturing capacity in our country. Look, no one wants to start up a small business. Look, conditions are getting worse everywhere. Our GDP growth is falling. Our quality of life isn't where it once was. So, let's look at this. Chinese buyers helped to drive up Aussie property prices before the government started to clamp down. Was it their government or ours? But there are plenty of new buyers from other countries swarming in. Investors from the US, UK, Singapore and Hong Kong have been furiously searching for homes on the Australian property market. Interest in Australian property climbed in 2020 with the biggest jump in searches. Searches. Once again, this is based on searches. Searches. That's the measure of the economy. Searches. I mean, searches are valuable while we still can. So, from the US at 57%. Well, that could be the election outcomes over there. All the Trump voters, 57% of the country, are fleeing the US. What do you reckon? Hong Kong followed at 17%, and the third largest was Singapore at 15%. Hong Kong, I don't think it'll ever be the same. It's when I went there, it was an amazing city, just crazy. With fewer cases of the pandemic in Australia and a quick recovery from recession, cashed-up expats looking to return could be behind the surge, said Nerida Conisbee, chief economist at realestate.com.au. But is it going to have the same impact? The US has a lot of political problems, which has settled down now. Well, no, the media has settled down. The political problems haven't. They're still having riots in Portland every night. The media has just, well, used the groups for their purposes. Orange man bad, everyone. Mission objective achieved. Now everything's good. Sure, people aren't getting their stimulus checks. I think the majority of people just voted for their free money, and they're getting scammed. But don't worry. You know, good old Biden, he's already bombing Biden. It's sad, isn't it? It really is in a way. We're still resorting to these type of things. So, the US had their biggest GDP decline in 300 years. So it's a huge problem there. And it could be a lot of people potentially looking to move to Australia because of better economic conditions, she explained. This is the thing. You know, times are tough depending on some industries here in Australia. We've got the bankruptcy coast here in Queensland, where insolvencies up all the tourist areas are in trouble. Our Premier is begging for federal government support for those industries, rather than, well, maybe realizing that if she hadn't run the state into even more of a hole from years of Labor mismanagement, they might have their own resources as well. You know, maybe they just got rid of some of these burdens they put on us. But that's not what politicians do, is it? No, nevertheless, we're, you know, as tough as it is here, we're doing better than other parts in the world, and sometimes that's all that matters. Hong Kong has a very challenging political situation there at the moment, and a challenging economic situation. But Hong Kong is the one that we would see most likely flow through to people moving here. Asian buyers tend to be the biggest buyers when searching for property overseas. I mean, Hong Kong Chinese are different to mainland Chinese. Culturally, I think a lot of the Hong Kongers would have more in common with Australia than with China in some regards. The language is different, the culture is different. You know, I really enjoyed my time in Hong Kong, you know, and it's sad what's happening there. She said first-time home buyers don't need to worry, as Hong Kong buyers tend to look at off-the-plan developments of high-end projects. Yes, but that tends to influence the entire market. Well, units are going down, so maybe there's an opportunity there. It's interesting looking at the US property searches as one of the top destinations is Byron Bay. So there's potentially more movement to beach sides from the US and UK following reopening of borders. There was another article about Byron Bay. All the hippies there that live in there are getting frustrated with all the van life people just living in the streets. So it's interesting what's happened in Byron. And I mean, it's so busy and developed. The last time I went there, I don't know. I don't see how special it was. I remember Noosa back in the 80s as a kid going there for a holiday. That was different. In the 90s. Now it's all changed. The more immediate impact is a lot of luxury off-the-plan developers, the type of Asian buyers looking to buy at a higher price point rather than investment-grade stock. Meanwhile, interest from China in Australian property continues to plummet, dropping by 39% over the past 12 months. Ms. Kniesby said Chinese investment hadn't come back since 2018 due to both Australian and Chinese government policy, including restrictions making it hard to get money out of the country. The Royal Commission into the misconduct in the banking, superannuation and financial services industry also began in 2017, she added. It was hard to get finance as banks put in restrictions for lending. There was also a lot of additional taxes on foreign buyers, like vacant property taxes and additional stamp duties, which financially made it less viable. And the other reason is, too, that the Chinese buyers, they dropped off in Australia and became more active elsewhere, she said. At this stage, there is nothing that has really changed to entice them back, so I don't think we will see them back in droves anytime soon. And as we saw here, they made a huge portion of it. Guys, so, you know, US, Singapore, what, you got 10%, 15, 21% as opposed to 51%. We'll have to see what happens. So there we have it, everyone. Chinese buyers are fleeing the market, and they're hoping that there'll be an uptick in people from UK, US, Singapore, and Hong Kong. But it's not the same scale, everyone. You know, look how close these things are. Bloody hell. That's terrible, isn't it? That's terrible. What happened to quarter-acre blocks, guys? You know, it's all adding up here in Australia. What do you think, guys? What's your take? As always, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you could support us. You could join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You could support us using our affiliate links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, join MidRx, SelfWealth, or support us with PayPal. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.